Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to today's live stream. Today is a special edition of our live stream we are calling Core Updates. So Core Updates is going to be our new quarterly roundtable discussion where we're bringing the smartest folks in marketing and SEO on to discuss all of the things happening in the world of marketing and SEO, which if you have not noticed, have been a lot. Lots of changes happening right now. And so this is going to be our chance to kind of tap into all these different topics, all these different conversations. Today's guests, we have an awesome panel here. Brittany Mueller is an AI and ML consultant, the founder of Data Sci 101. We've got Mike King, who's the founder and CEO of the award-winning SEO agency iPullRank. And we have Patrick Stocks, who's a product advisor, technical SEO, and brand ambassador from Ahrefs. Really smart folks in the room. Real quick, before we kick things off, I have three things I'd love to ask you for. Number one, say hello in the chat. Let us know who's here. Number two, hit the like button on this video. Help other folks find it. And number three, hit subscribe to our channel here. We host at least every month. We have roundtable discussions, workshops, live Q&As, lots of great stuff happening here. So would love to have you join us for future sessions as well. All right. Hey, y'all. How's everyone doing today?
Fantastic. I'm actually quite impressed by your Doom poster back there.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. Got to represent the mad villain for sure. Well, cool. Well, I'm really excited. Once again, thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I'm excited to dive in. Obviously, as I mentioned, in the last 12 months, even in the last few months, there have been just huge changes happening in the world of SEO and marketing. So I want to dive into perhaps one of the most salient topics for a lot of folks, which is Google's SGE, right? Search Generative Experience. For those of you who may not be familiar, it's essentially the AI generated search results that are appear at the top of Google search. Currently in sort of a beta or a labs testing mode, if you will. So my first question is, in the last couple of weeks, I've seen some speculation that Google might be sort of putting SGE on pause or maybe even abandoning it altogether. Have you all seen those rumors, and any thoughts on that?
I guess I'll take this one. Yeah, but it's like anything else in our space. No one actually knows what they're talking about. I think they interpreted an announcement where Google was saying that they were incorporating some components of it into regular search and being like, oh, well, this is never going to launch. If you paid any attention to the most recent Google earnings call, Sundar speaks very specifically about SGE, saying that they are still pretty bullish on it and that they're just going to like slow roll it out. But, like in our space, we take any nugget and try to extrapolate it into like what it means. And so we got a lot of people saying like, yeah, SGE is never coming out. So.
How long ago was it that they said their goal was basically the Star Trek computer, like one answer for everything? They're not going away from that. It's always been the goal.
Okay, so we've got two no's. Brittany?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of the perfect distraction, like Mike said, SEOs, we love to latch onto these things, but in reality, like we have no insight into their actual rollout plan. My suspicion is that it is indeed going to roll out. I don't think they're going to change that. But I also think this is sort of a drop in the bucket when it comes to generative AI in general for Google. Like no one is even talking about SGE at these like AI conferences and meetups and different things. It's all of the other applications across the Google products we use every day, right? This is like a tiny, tiny piece of the puzzle. And I think a lot of marketers and SEOs aren't seeing the full picture. And it's important to do that.
Can you say more about that, Brittany?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been paying really close attention to Google's sort of PR messaging, right? Like you can read in between the lines a bit when they release different statements, different quotes, and they're talking a lot about related to generative search experience about like GIFs recommendations, which I find really interesting. And there's a thread there that we're gonna see like start to unfold a bit in Q1, Q2. But aside from the SGE stuff, I think, these Gen AI applications, this is essentially an AI race, right? And Google's trying to prove themselves as this leader in the AI space. And quite frankly, they are. And they have all of the data in the world. So their researchers have been working really hard to apply this technology in useful and meaningful ways throughout, think Google Drive, think Gmail, think Calendar, think all of the applications, YouTube. I think we're going to start to see some really impactful applications there that help us go from, maybe 0 to 5 a bit quicker, right? Make things a bit faster in terms of creating something or implementing something. And so to start think about it in terms of that. And the messaging here is Google plans to be bold throughout this next year with Gen AI. They have to, right? For stakeholders, etc. But they're going to be careful. So this will take a while to roll out. We will see, it's an iterative process. So just prepare to like start to be introduced to some of these things and get in early, play with this stuff early as it, comes about.
Fascinating. Are you all other folks? Mike, are you seeing kind of the same vision here of sort of the broader portfolio of Google's AI products?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Brittany on that point. I think people kind of negate the fact that Google, they're in everything that we do, right? Like so many of their applications are like everyone uses them. We rely on them for so many things, and so many of those tools have had AI to some degree baked in for a very long time. And so generative AI is just like, for Google, I think they're trying to get to a place where it's like, it's just a part of it. It's not like an explicit feature. It's just like a part of the functionality that you naturally use. And to that end, I mean, Google has the ecosystem where they will always be the generative AI solution that everyone uses. It's great that ChatGPT came out of nowhere and made all this noise and everything, but and also they continue to kind of like drive the space with respect to like, yeah, if you're going to build a Gen AI product, you're going to build it on top of ChatGPT because frankly, it's just way cheaper than using Vertex AI. And so there is this aspect of like, there's a disconnect between what Google holds and how they're going to penetrate the market because they are the market. But then there's this aspect of like, okay, well, what everyone is talking about is ChatGPT. But what do you think Google's going to do? Is like sit around and just be second best for forever on a technology that they invented? No, that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be exactly what Brittany's just talking about. Like they're going to roll out more things that continue to change the game that everyone is using because we're already using it.
Okay. So if I can maybe read between the lines there, Mike, what I'm hearing is a prediction that Google is going to sort of reign supreme here over a longer time horizon.
They're definitely going to win the war here. Like, it's just the reality, right? Like, and we have so much that's happening in the media where they're like, oh, TikTok's bigger than Google. Oh, ChatGPT is going to kill Google. If you look at the traffic for these sites, like, because the whole thing where people are like, oh, TikTok is bigger than Google. That was based on Cloudflare's Radar product that said that the DNS for TikTokCDN.com had more requests than Google.com. That's not an indication that people are using Google less. That is actually a stupid thing that was kind of like blown out of proportion. And
I'm sensing a theme so far.
So the whole point is that if you look at the actual traffic to these sites, Google has remained dominant. And we're all going to continue to use Gmail. We're all going to continue to use Google Docs. We're all going to use these products that we've been using because they're great products. And Google's just going to continue to ramp up their capabilities. Like people like Jeff Dean aren't going to sit around and get their asses kicked by like people that work at OpenAI. Like that's just not going to happen.
That's awesome.
I also feel like, kind of to piggyback on top of that, AI has essentially become a marketing term. Right. This is jargon in a lot of its applications. And it's hype is designed as like a PR tactic to build up, you know, potential business and investors, etc. But something we don't think about and talk about with the generative search experience that's going to directly apply to us is how fucking expensive this shit is to run. It costs 100 times more for Google to generate a generative search experience than a regular search.
Wow.
They can't keep
And
that.
it's slower.
And it's slower. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's also kind of a glorified featured snippet, if we're being honest. They're caching these. They're not doing it every time. They have to have some sort of system that says, oh yeah, this is good enough. We'll cache this for this generative experience every time, so that we're not bleeding cache every time someone does this popular search. So we as SEOs are going to have to identify those and adapt with that.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. For the search side, like this is featured snippets 2.0. They're going to own the no simple, the quick overviews. Their SEOs are still going to get traffic in depth, like people doing that kind of research. But where they made a lot of moves also is product. Like their product search engine is getting really good. So they're going to take away, in my opinion, another part of the funnel there soon.
Interesting. Okay, so what I'm hearing here is that while we, myself included, right, SEO content marketing folks may be sort of hyper fixated on SGE, it's really just sort of a drop in the bucket in the larger spectrum of generative AI products that Google is developing. That being said, what's your expectation on the impact? Patrick, you just mentioned, you know, potentially taking away sort of part of the funnel, but what's your expected impact of SGE from a sort of an SEO perspective?
Yeah, I think there's going to be less traffic to us and more to Google, but it's a fine line for them. They are going to run into antitrust issues, how to monetize. Like they can't just kill off their ads business. They can't overstep where they're going to get broken up, which they're kind of prepared for because they already went with the alphabet and everything. But they can't do too much too fast just because it puts them at too much risk, I would say, or their shareholders at too much risk. For SEOs, yeah, Brittany mentioned about like it being more expensive to run. It's the same with rank trackers. Now rank trackers are going to have to process the JavaScript. You know, rank tracking goes from a very cheap thing to a more expensive thing, and potentially even need some interaction. So like it's not always there. Sometimes you have to click a button to get the SGE result. So now instead of just getting a quick HTML call, processing that, might have to render, might actually have to click. That's a lot more expensive.
Yeah, and that could take up to 30 seconds. You know what I mean? And so since compute power is a function of time anyway, your costs for rank tracking are going to go up dramatically. Because right now, when you scrape Google, you know, it could be like, I don't know, let's call it like 250 milliseconds for you to get the response back. But if it takes 30 seconds, like your margin is gone for rank tracking effectively. And the thing is, it's not even that valuable. You know what I mean? Like for like Brittany said, it's just a more, you know, terrible featured snippet, basically. And
I like them.
Yeah, and I mean, the other aspect is everyone wants to know how to get in there, and we've just seen it be like really inconsistent. You know, what it comes down to is identifying the most relevant chunks, because it's way more about relevance than authority from what we're seeing. But at the same time, you can do all the work to optimize and it still might not change. And I mean, that's no different from the featured snippet. It's no different from anything else you do in SEO. But it's going to be way more important to be there, because from the modeling that we've done, we've seen it be like on average, like 40% of traffic that you might lose as a result of that. No one knows yet, but again, it's like a model. But at the same time, like there's no clear path on here's precisely what you do to get there. And so everyone is just going to lose a lot of traffic.
Well, if you use one of these, like you can generate like 3 times, it's going to give you different results every time. So
not necessarily. Sometimes it does do that. Like we've done it where we've done tests like day over day and it's been different, but I can do it, generate, and then go back and generate again, and it does cache it.
Or yeah, like pre-cached results. Like might get one or this one or this one, but it's always one of these 2 or 3.
Yeah. So is now a time to act or to wait? What are you telling clients, contacts, folks in the industry? How do we deal with SGE at this stage?
Yeah, I think for us, it's been what we do is we build out these reports. So like we look at the keywords that are driving the most traffic for the site, and then we perform the searches, obviously automated in SGE, and then pull back the features. How long does it take to actually generate the result? And then we run that through the model and we say, all right, here's what we're predicting your traffic loss could be as a result of this. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep ranking for those keywords, or do you want to redistribute what keywords you're going after? Because some of those keywords don't trigger a snippet or AI snapshot or whatever, and so you're pretty good, but maybe you don't rank as well for those. So let's go after those right now so that we're already ranking better to offset what that traffic loss will be. But a lot of the people that we put that in front of are like, okay, cool, nothing's happened yet, so let's not worry about it. But then there are some people that want to be more proactive about it because they've already been through big traffic losses from Google.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we've seen this movie before, right? There's different actors here, but we've seen this play out before. And I think I saw a comment in the questions about, yeah, Keith said, we'll figure it out. SEOs are the best at figuring things out with very little information. I totally support that. And I think we're in a good position. To be honest, like in all honesty, I think SEOs and especially technical SEOs that understand how this stuff works, we're in a pretty solid position to navigate this stuff. Again, it's going to be an iterative process. And I also think this whole SGE thing is a bit of a distraction. Like, has anyone on this panel, like, have you guys seen the on-page experience that Chrome is doing on mobile where it summarizes page info? Like, that's the stuff that I would be thinking more about, honestly.
I think that's such a bad idea.
Stealing your lunch at your table. You know what I mean? They're like, come into your house and taking your food. It's so weird. I'm concerned with some of that stuff. But what can SEOs do? I think, I like to think more long-term about how some of this stuff is going to shake out, and generative content is going to start to pollute this ecosystem, and it's mediocre at best. It's your run-of-the-mill content crap, honestly. And so I think writers, real people, real experiences, like that sort of authentic personality, like that's a big take for the future for marketers, is like brands and people in general you need more personality. You need more of that like real human experience. Yeah, Lily Ray already.
Yeah.
Photocopy of a photocopy. It's wild, but yeah, those are some of my suspicions and how to kind of navigate it. Real people. Yes, real people.
I've been telling people, like, you still got to optimize for SGE. I mean, I think you go more like sentence level now. Look what's there, anything you can add to it, anything new or interesting you can add to the topic, clear organization, make it easy for them to pull stuff out. Because I still want to be there personally. Like, if nothing else, it's a branding play. Like, show my site up there. They're pulling in images now. Show my image there. I at least want to be seen if there's my stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because we were looking for keywords that we can optimize for this post we're doing, and we looked up enterprise SEO, and your image does show there.
I love that. Okay, so yeah, I think once again we're all in sort of do what you can now, but ultimately we're still in a holding pattern and sort of seeing how things continue to evolve. And Brittany, you mentioned some of the other products that are potentially even a bigger threat to SEO or to the traffic and the conversions that we're getting right now. So yeah, that's fascinating. One final question on SGE before we move on to the next topic. Obviously it's still in sort of the labs phase. It's not technically out in the wild, if you will. Is SGE rolling out to the public this year?
We don't know.
I can't.
it's not a good enough
I have to be
experience.
careful about how I say this because it's incredible what you can learn showing up at AI conferences and just asking really simple questions to people, you know?
Brittany's got the insider info over here, and she's holding out on us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the last thing I would want is to get anyone in trouble, but I will say I highly suspect we will see it rolled out in 2024. Yeah.
So, fun fact, my daughter goes to a school near me in Brooklyn, obviously. And one of the kids that goes to school with her, who also lives in our building, her dad is an engineer on SGE. And he came to one of the birthday parties once. And I didn't tell him I do SEO. I was just like, yeah, you know, I do generative AI stuff and da-da-da. And he felt very comfortable letting me know a lot about what's going on. One of the things he said to me is that, yeah, we've lost the war against SEO. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, you know, there's all types of wars. Like there's the war on drugs. America lost that. Well, as Google, we lost the war on SEO. And then he was just telling me about how, you know, like just what they're doing with SGE. And I was talking to him about it, like from a technical perspective. But of course, he's still cagey about like the timeline. What I want to know is when this thing is coming out. And so he just wouldn't tell me. So that's why I mean, like, I don't know when it's happening. Apparently, Brittany had a different conversation, though.
Well, I think I mean, yeah, I don't know. I can't say too much about it, but that's my suspicion, you all. So buckle up.
Well, the good news is we're all in the same boat.
Totally.
You know, I'll try to figure it out together. So that's the good news for everyone who's sweating it. Cool. Well, let's move on to another topic that was big in the SEO world in the last couple months. I'm sure all of you or most of you have came across the SEO Heist case study, quote unquote. Yes, I roll expected. So for anyone who was not familiar, right, there was a sort of semi-viral case study about somebody who used AI to generate a bunch of content. So let's call it pollution if you want, to try to hijack or steal traffic from a specific competitor in a specific niche. I won't go into any more detail than that. But so I guess my question is, what does this mean? Is this sort of the new reality? Should we expect this type of thing to happen in the world of SEO? And I guess, is it any different than what we have been doing previously?
I'll start on that. Yeah, I think you nailed it. Just look at your competitors, see what's working for them, do it. This is just potentially a little faster, at least as like an MVP. But I think like that one particular one was just based on one competitor's sitemap. Like me personally, I'm like, here's top pages across all my competitors. Let's just take the whole market. Why not? We've actually done a few programmatic plays similar at Ahrefs, and I think like we've nearly tripled our traffic since last May or so.
Wow. And when you say programmatic, was that using AI, or was this how was that done?
One was completely generative AI. Actually, I think no one's even realized that yet. The other was a mix of Gen AI plus our own data, which has been talked about a bunch. The like top pages thing. It's kind of the old. I think I saw it on Alexa.com first, like rank for a bunch of different websites, brand names. Kind of not that different from like the old sites that used to be like, this is how much this website is worth.
Right.
But we're like showcasing our data.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think it's any different from what we do manually, right? Like if you're someone who uses a tool like Surfer SEO or whatever the other tools are that like extract the features and topics from pages, and then you write those pages manually and you publish them, that is no different from you saying like, hey, my competitor has 100 or 1 million pages about these things. Why don't we just feed that into ChatGPT and then put out pages? The only difference is that a person did it. So this whole idea that, people like talk about it from a perspective of ethics, it's like, are you joking? You know what I'm saying? Like, because it is literally no different than how most sites were like, oh, okay, we got all these topics that we need for SEO content, and then they sent them to like Pakistan or whatever to get them written for like $5 each. Like, it is literally no different. It's just that you're doing it at scale from a programmatic perspective. Now, that said, do I recommend every website do that? No, of course not, right? Like, at the end of the day, you should be making content that's valuable for people and so on and so forth. And that should be your only approach. But this idea of everyone being so up in arms because this kid did that, like, get out of here. You're just mad because he did it first.
Fair enough. Brittany, did you have any thoughts on that that episode?
Not really. I sort of have blinders on when it comes to some of that stuff. I feel like I don't know if I've just been in the space too long or what, but I like what Garrett said in the comments, the printing press of content, and yeah echo what Mike said, Patrick.
For sure. Mike, you mentioned that you probably wouldn't recommend it to, I guess, every site. Can you maybe parse that for us? Like, are there certain places where you see this as valuable and where it's not?
Absolutely. So, I've talked about this at length. And in fact, back when like GPT-2 was the only thing really available, I wrote a blog post on like how you can do this for product listing pages, because, we all talk about like, oh, duplicate content is bad, but like most successful e-commerce sites have a bunch of pages that are basically internal search pages. They add copy to it, and then traffic goes crazy like Patrick just described. And so that is still a viable option. It still works quite well. And if you do it the right way, like leveraging the data model for the page, feeding that to your prompts and so on, you can generate content that's actually quite valuable for those pages. But it doesn't make sense to like have a human do those. It makes sense to have your humans do like the buyer's guides, and like really you should be thinking about how do you redistribute those writers towards something that like only a person can do. And then for the pages like I'm describing, sure, let it go crazy as long as it's in a frame that's valuable to the actual user.
Yeah, it's like I said, also like MVP. As an MVP, that's okay, but you probably should improve it before you launch it, add your own insights, add value. But I'm a fan of, get MVP content out and then like make it better. So like even the programmatic top pages, like we're still building that out, but we went ahead and released it. And the stuff that we have planned for it is kind of unlike what anyone has done. So they will be valuable, very valuable pages, I would say.
And one more thing I want to add is, if you're publishing content, like if you're not using a RAG approach, retrieval augmented generation, and you're just like getting whatever you get directly out of ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using, you deserve whatever you get. Like, you should be building custom indexes of like best in class content so you can get the best information into that content. Because otherwise you're just like at the mercy of whatever ChatGPT has and however it feels it wants to hallucinate.
You both sort of jumped ahead to my next question, which was, the ending of this saga as it played out on social media, right? Was that this site basically had a huge surge in traffic and then tanked and essentially went to zero. I believe they later it was revealed that there was like an actual manual action against the site, etc. So, but I'd love to know. So you mentioned a couple of things here, but yeah, what are the strategies if you're interested in doing this kind of AI first sort of mass content production strategy? What are some of the things that you would do to protect your site against that kind of an outcome?
Yeah, I also agree with what Patrick is saying. Well, I guess you're here. What Patrick is saying about make sure that you're like actually keeping humans in the loop. Like we still believe you should be doing editing. Now that there's like viable fact checking APIs, you should be running your content through that. And again, using that RAG model where you're building out indexes of like, all right, here's the topic, subject matter, whatever. Here's the best content that I can find on this subject. And then effectively what happens is when you submit the prompt, it retrieves the chunks of those content pieces that are most relevant to that prompt, and then it appends it to your prompt before you feed it to the language model. So like certain facts can be appended this way. You can do this with knowledge graphs. You can do this with CSVs. And so that way you're going to get your facts in there. And if you're pulling from data sources that aren't being used, like we're doing this for a tire company right now, we're pulling all this data that is not available like in content that exists online. So we're able to generate net new accurate information by doing this. And so taking approaches like that and then layering that with like a good governance model as it relates to editorial and so on is going to yield you much better content that's going to perform long term, and you're not going to run into these issues. However, I still do not believe that Google can reliably detect generative AI content at scale across the entire web. I don't think that had whoever this guy is that did the SEO Heist thing, had he kept his mouth shut, he would still be performing right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also think, in terms of that, I think writing is one of LLM's worst capabilities. There are so many other things throughout the writing process that you could be wielding with language models that I don't think content marketers and SEOs are even thinking about right now. So like this tool WordCrafter, I have no stake in this, but my friend built it from Hugging Face. Oh, it failed to post for some reason. Wordcrafter.ai. But like using tools like that are going to search results to basically scrape and read all of the content of the ranking articles that you're trying to compete with and create strategic content briefs that then your team can attack. Or like Mike mentioned, the RAG model solution, especially tapping in to those resources that aren't online. Like the tire example is so genius, getting things that are net new and incorporating that into a way that really helps you create that world-class valuable content.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I think you could spend a bunch of time writing a piece of content, or you can get a pretty decent base piece and then spend that same amount of time just making it better, figuring out what you can do to actually build a moat. So maybe instead of the time I spent writing, I go do a survey, or I've got personal data. HRS, we've got tons of data. So we're figuring out how do we blend our data in with this stuff. And I'm trying to do it even on our blog. Like, why do we not just show, we have some stuff like some stats, but we could do more, just showcase our data more within all of our content. And all of that's kind of a branding play. All of that's kind of a way to just make a better piece. It is building a moat that someone can't touch, really. I'd rather spend my time doing that personally.
Once again, Patrick, you beat me to my next question, which was, so if I'm on the other side of this, if I'm the site that you're sort of scraping and targeting with an AI content play, what are some things that I can do to protect myself? And so you mentioned about sort of building this moat using, sort of moving up the value chain, if I can interpret your words there, by creating better content that includes more original data, that kind of stuff. Any other strategies that you all are thinking about in terms of sort of protecting yourselves from competitors employing these types of strategies?
You could block a lot of the crawlers from crawling this. Technically,
I don't think Mike likes that idea.
I mean, first of all, we both know it's not going to do anything, right? There's so many ways around any sort of blocks. And to that point, from a bigger picture perspective, I think any brand that's like, oh, I'm going to block ChatGPT, or I'm going to block the Common Crawl, or whatever it is, that's also stupid, because like Patrick mentioned before, there's a branding element to all of these channels. So you're just going to cut yourself out of the consideration set. As far as how you basically keep people play defense, like Keith just said, things are net new until you publish them, because again, we're all doing the same thing. We're all using Surfer SEO to be here's the questions that need to be answered. Here are the entities you account for. So of course, that's going to happen, right? Like it's no longer going to be an advantage very quickly. So I think to that end, it's really about how can you continue to publish, right? And I think that's where these data sets can be valuable, because if you have a data set that you can refresh easily on a weekly basis, monthly basis, or what have you, and you can publish faster than the person copying you, then you will continue to have that advantage. But otherwise, like, we can all write the same stuff at this point. And it really just comes down to the concept of information gain, but that requires you to continue to have information that no one else has.
Interesting.
Yeah, at this point, I think the copying still works, but in the future, I think it's all the information gain. Like what actually was added, who added that value first.
Yeah.
So I've been saying for years in presentation, like I read the top search results. I feel like I'm reading the same article over and over again. It's what we've been doing, so I don't see how Gen AI is really that different, except it probably makes a worse version of content than most people make.
One more thought on this, and you know, I'm a late convert on the EEAT thing. And the reason why I'm a late convert is because, like, it didn't seem realistic. But then once you realize, like, it's all done on the back of embeddings, it makes a lot more sense to me. And so to that end, like I said, I don't believe that Google can effectively at scale determine or detect generative AI content. But what they can do is leverage the concept of these EAT. So, like, you know, who is this writer? Okay, we've seen this writer across the web. Are they authoritative on this subject? Is this site authoritative on this subject? Which allows them to say, like, okay, this random niche site that came out of nowhere that suddenly has 5,000 articles about this thing is not as valuable as the site that has been continually having stronger information gain. So effectively, we're talking about the idea of, like, the reputation that you're building across Google. And so you have these other signals that can be leveraged to indicate, like, okay, these guys should rank because they know what they're talking about. And we've seen this reflected across the web in a way that is measurable.
Fast. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
literally, it took me that long. It took me that long. I was like, oh, here she goes again with EAT. But now I'm on board.
I just had kind of a wild thought idea. It's like, okay, so with this conversation, with everyone trying to use generative AI to expand their content creation efforts, how do we hack the system? How do we make sure that our brand, our identity, our products are showing up in those generative text iterations that people are creating for other websites, right? How do we make that happen? And once you understand the technology, it's a probability distribution. It's actually simple when you break it down to that level. You need to be showing up in places all over the internet with relevant context, relevant information about what it is that you're providing. And then these systems will be way more likely to generate or reference your products, brands, etc. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Brittany just solved AI for us.
I don't know that. I don't know that. But maybe take a look at the websites in the Common Crawl, right? Wikipedia. We know Reddit's in there. We know all these big media publications. We know the websites that are feeding these things that have, you know, probably heavier weights than others. Get in there. You know, I really do think that brand mentions will be the new backlinks with this technology.
Brittany, don't say that, because now everyone's going to start building content farms, not for links, just so that they're mentioned on 100 million sites.
I know.
But they can do the other things, like spend the time, make you know, statistics, quotes from someone. Like, this is the data studies. Like, that's the kind of stuff that is likely, I think, to be pulled into the common knowledge. It's like someone said something, like there's a famous statistic or whatever, that's probably going to be in every one of the articles generated, and hopefully it references the source, which could be you.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm hearing is brand marketing becomes part of SEO in 2024.
I mean, it's technically already been.
Hey, fair enough. Yeah. So I want to talk really quickly. Another big headline recently was the Gartner prediction. Their prediction is that search traffic as a whole is going to drop by 50% by the year 2028. So question for the group here. A, do you think that's true? And B, more broadly, or maybe more interestingly, like, what does that actually mean, right? As you just talked about, there's other value that we're getting from being included in these generative results, those types of things that aren't going to generate traffic, but have other values. So how do you think about that statistic and that prediction?
I was curious. Oh, sorry. I was curious on that. So like I looked and that survey wasn't even 300 people. And I don't really even understand what they meant. It said something about like brands organic search traffic. It's going to drop by 50%. And it's like, is that the overall search traffic or like just for the brand or what? Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, that's good clarification.
No, first of all, I appreciate that, like what you just said, because again, like people just run with these headlines and they don't look at the methodology, and we get the situations like, oh, TikTok's bigger than Google. Like, no, it never was. But I think that there's definitely going to be a drop in organic search traffic. I don't know that it's going to be as dramatic as that, because I personally do not believe that people's preferred way of meeting their information needs is going to be through chat. Like there are certain queries where it makes sense, but I'm in this process of like writing this post about the changing user behaviors as it relates to information needs. 40% of people that go to ChatGPT then go to Google right after that. My presumption here is that they're going to verify whatever they've learned from ChatGPT. So that just tells me like people don't completely believe in it in that way. And I don't know that that's going to change until we get to a point where, the outputs are more reliable. So yes, I do think there's going to be a change in user needs. Like more people want to go to, TikTok as an example when they want to learn how to tie a tie, or Instagram for that because they're going to get a quick little video for it, or they're going to go to YouTube for that. But I don't know that we're all just going to suddenly just use chatbots overnight and then that's going to be it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's going to also get more diversified, but in terms of like that traffic drop, that's also sort of on trend with what we've been seeing over time with different featured snippets, Google wanting to keep people on Google. And I think we really have to like take a step back as marketers and consider what is the value we're adding here, right? Like in what other ways can we convey meaning and value and connection with these audiences and diversify our efforts as well, right? I think as kind of these things ebb and flow, it would be advantageous to explore like what other platforms is our target market on? What does that look like? How can we strategically get in front of them there? I try to always keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, thanks for raising a very valid question on that one, Patrick. That's helpful context for us to keep in mind.
I wouldn't even know how to answer that question. Like, it needed more context. Like, I mean, most brands, like honestly, they only rank for their branded terms. People aren't going to start or stop searching for that because of SGE. Like, they want to go to the site, but they're not going to stop that. So, depending on how that's interpreted, like the answers are going to be all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, totally makes sense. That's honestly been sort of my take on this too, and sort of to echo what Brittany said is like, if you can't provide value beyond what what SGE can show people, then like you probably don't deserve to get traffic anyway, right? Like what value are you actually providing? So, what next topic here? I want to talk a little bit about like communities and forums. So in some of the recent updates, we've seen Google surfacing sites like Reddit in the search results and sort of elevating them in the SERPs. Do you think that's a trend that's going to continue? Is that sort of an experiment? Where do we think that lands over the long term?
I keep trying not to talk so much, but you guys keep pausing. So.
It's the thing. I'm like, y'all can go first. I feel like I keep going first.
I'm sorry. I should do a better job of asking an individual rather than just tossing it out.
So I mean, I think that's one of those reactions to, again, what is happening in the media, right? Like there were some small blog posts at first where people were like, oh, appending Reddit is better, and then the bigger media caught on to that, and then they started saying it. And of course, search quality is a function of perception, right? Like we're all running around saying how bad Google is right now. But really, is it that bad? Like, yes, there are definitely examples that we all have shared where it's like, this is ridiculous. But on broad scale, is Google actually that bad, right? And so, I think that for the short term, yes, Google is going to look to surface more of that right now. But at the same time, they're also doing this ridiculous thing where they're adding notes, like annotations that they're showing everywhere. Like, no, I don't want Google to have Yahoo Answers baked into it. Like, that's a bad idea. So I think we're just going to continue to see a series of these experiments as they try to change the perception of what search quality is, and also improve a lot of things on the back of improvements to language modeling as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Patrick, I think I've seen some screenshots from Ahrefs showing, Reddit's traffic share sort of through the roof. Are you all seeing any other trends there based on sort of these, like the hidden gems update or any of those changes?
Yeah, lots of the user-generated sites are getting blown up, and now SEOs are taking advantage of that too. So I think they have to dial it back. Honestly, I don't know that it'll last. Like, I would remember I was talking with Gary a while back, and I was like, remember when y'all had the forums thing? Like, there was literally a tab for forums. Apparently, I'm one of the only people that use that. So they already killed off something similar that I enjoyed. So I can't imagine like they're just going to be like, oh, the everything forum should rank for everything when they literally got rid of a feature to search within forums.
Right.
I have a fun little insight, and I'm curious to get everyone's take and people in the comments, because I don't quite know how to make this connection. But guess what website made the difference when training early chat GPTs? What made it like more conversational? What made it better as an interactive tool for users? It was Reddit. And even more specifically, it was the Explain It Like I'm 5 subreddit for some reason. Like that really helped evolve and like fine tune the conversational capabilities of these language models. And I wonder, like, what is that a connection? Like, is there something there? Because clearly it works in terms of making things more casual, sound more, have a bit more personality. And I don't know directly how those are connected, but I'm curious, like, did one impact the other? What does that look like? I don't know.
If Reddit is the solution, we have the wrong problem.
A bigger problem.
Reddit IPO is about to go through the roof.
Yeah, that's going to be really wild if they do dial back like right after the IPO. There might be some like lawsuits or something related to that. Like I could easily see Reddit suing Google. Like, you gave me all this traffic and then you took it away like right after IPO. That's going to look bad.
Fascinating. Oh man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that is interesting though, Brittany. I can't profess to be nearly smart enough to unravel that, but but yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it's obviously such a source of conversational dialogue around so many different topics that it must have a lot of value, I would assume.
Yeah, and was the way that it was introduced in like the training process presented in a way that conveyed it to be more meaningful, right? Or better for people that somehow got scrambled with different, like, I just don't know. I'm fascinated by that though. Yeah,
it's interesting. And then another sort of interesting observation, or maybe it's not interesting, but I think, Mike, you mentioned that this change of surfacing Reddit content was, at least appeared to be, sort of a reaction to people talking about how they were more frequently using like a Reddit modifier in the search results. So is Google maybe getting smarter about responding to how we as users are changing our search habits, and maybe trying to get ahead of some of those changes?
I don't know that they're getting smarter. Like, that's just what they've always done, right? Like, some of those things have been, like tests that ran on a small scale and then didn't go anywhere. Some of those things have yielded new features. So like when they started adding all those facets for like product search and things like that. So I think they're pretty good at staying on top of that stuff. I just think this is like the flavor of the month that they're running with right now.
Yeah, makes sense. Patrick, do you have any thoughts on that one?
No, exactly that. I don't see it last. I mean, discussions in forums, the promotion of Reddit, user-generated content. A lot of times that's pretty crappy content, to be honest. I think they're gonna have to like be. I really think where people use Reddit the most in their queries are like appended to the searches is probably on products, because they don't trust all the affiliate review sites. They're like, let me go check like with some Reddit groups, maybe some Discord groups to just kind of verify, is this the real deal? But general information, having like discussions in forums is like, Reddit's not the nicest place at times. So.
Wait a minute. I have a devil advocate take on this, because I think SEOs and marketers grossly underestimate the power of Reddit. So it is a great breeding ground to test content. It is a great way to amp something up and get a strong backlink. If you look at different pieces of content I've written over the years, some of the strongest backlinks and things that have gotten me momentum for them have been Reddit. So I think there's different ways that we could be using it. One fun example is like, I think if you still search Bert 101, you'll see the post I wrote at Hugging Face, but you'll also see my Reddit of, hey, how, all of you brilliant people, rip this to shreds for me. Tell me how this could be better. That's all Reddit people want to do, right? They want to like shit on everything. So use it to your advantage, right? Be smart about it. Wield these things in the right way, and you too can find success with Reddit. I don't know, you guys. I just had to put that out there because you can learn a lot. You also learn a lot about like, what are people talking about? There's a lot of data to be mined on Reddit for strategic stuff. So that's my going to bat for Reddit. I did not see that coming.
Well, I'm a huge Reddit fan. I mean, I mod like the tech SEO subreddit even. I'm on there every day. It's just, it's not the nicest place, but that's an interesting use case. Just have people not be nice intentionally.
You just have to harness the negativity.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of concerns with Reddit, especially how using it for training language models and all the biases that come with it. I'm not a big Reddit fan in that way.
No.
Totally, yeah, and obviously highly susceptible to manipulation as well, at least as of right now. So that's another tricky one. So I'd love to talk a little bit about. We touched briefly on ChatGPT. Obviously, in the last couple of months, they launched the custom GPTs and the GPT store. Have you all found any fascinating use cases there? Maybe I'll start with you, Brittany. Have you any custom GPTs or GPTs in the store that you found that have been particularly helpful or useful for you?
I'm a bit of a wet blanket on the GPT store just because it doesn't add a whole lot of functionality that wasn't there previously with the API. Like you could have done all of these things before. And so what I've found to be most effective is just bypassing that and using the API for workflows that make sense, right? Like how can you support a group of salespeople with prospective websites that they're going to reach out to and have it crawl the sites and generate like an auto brief? That's a great example. It's a low risk application. So I'm thinking of those applications. I'm thinking of getting this in the hands of marketers in ways that's even more directly meaningful than like having to go to a store and connect different things. So yeah.
Does the GPT store sort of democratize that for less technical folks?
Yeah, for sure. It makes it more accessible, absolutely, to do some of that stuff, which is a great way to learn. It's a great way to maybe test out different ideas. Yeah, and I know Mike has more experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about the use cases that allow people that are less technical than me to do what I do. And the latest use case that has popped up for us is creating a custom GPT using a client's brand voice and tone documentation, and also like their persona documentation as well. And then feeding it a piece of content that we've written and say, okay, basically tell us where this misaligns with the brand or where it doesn't appeal to these personas. Because a lot of what we're doing at iPull Rank right now is just like figuring out things that we can automate. So we're doing all these things where we're like, tying Google Workspace to various different like language models and BigQuery and all these different things, so that a lot of the things that like, only I can do, the team can now do just by pressing like a button or two or whatever. So custom GPTs, from my perspective, are valuable in that way. But I am never going to the GPT store. Like, there is nothing that anyone has built that I couldn't build myself in 2 minutes using ChatGPT. So like, it's not for me. It's for people who aren't that technical. But at the same time, you can ask ChatGPT to do things that are technical as long as you can describe them effectively. So like, it just feels like you need that if you're lazy.
Fair enough.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think it's very similar to that. Being at Ahrefs, we've already launched some features in the tool for like a pretty unique take on intent, some keyword research options, translation options, and there's a lot more coming. I think SQ actually published a blog earlier today showing some like use cases, but we just want to, what was the word, democratize access for everyone. Like, we want to build into the tool, click this button and do this thing instead of like having to build something.
Yeah, makes total sense. Well, we've got just 2 minutes left before the hour. So I have one final question or one final topic I want to touch on, which is New York Times filed a lawsuit against OpenAI regarding copyright infringement. What do we think is sort of the fallout of that long term? Is, are LLMs going to get sort of the smackdown from scraping and ingesting copyrighted material? Brittany, what do you think?
I don't know. This is tricky. It's going to be really, really interesting to watch. I just listened to a podcast that was talking about like one potential outcome is that like these models and these companies could pay royalties to the sources that they cite throughout the process. But if you know how embedding models work, like, it's not that straightforward, right? These would have to be completely retrained to account for different, and even then it gets quite scrambled. So I don't even know how that's possible, what that would look like. And it's also kind of a question of like, what is public domain, which I find really interesting. But yeah, I certainly don't have answers when it comes to the copyright infringement. It'll be interesting to see it pan out.
For sure.
I don't think it's realistic because the cat's out of the bag. Like, we have so many open source versions of this. There are models you can run on CPUs at this point. Like, you can't stop people. Like, genie's out the bottle, whatever idiom you want to use, you can't stop it. So good luck. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. What's the tech thing? Ask for permission, or ask for forgiveness, not permission, right? We already crossed the line. Awesome. Well, we are at the hour. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to all of our guests today. If you're not already following these folks, find them online on Twitter. We've got Mike is at iPullRank. We've got at Brittany Mueller, at Patrick Stocks. Find those folks. Thank you once again, y'all, for spending time with us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us. Please, once again, hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the stream. And thank you all again. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.